Star Network is.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, today is Friday, February 6, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. The racist in chief is back at it again. Donald Trump posts a flat-out racist video that depicts President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama as monkeys. Republicans and Democrats blast him before he takes it down. Yeah, you know, we got lots to talk about. Virginia's governor has signed into law a bill passed by the state House and Senate where Democrats will create 10 Democratic congressional districts and 1 Republican congressional district. Plus, in Philadelphia, they are suing Donald Trump for following the National Park Service's decision to dismantle a long-established slavery-related exhibit at Independence National Historical Park, which includes the former residence of course, slaveholder George Washington. We'll speak with the civil rights attorney who is involved in this case. And the International Olympic Committee has forced Haiti to remove an image of revolutionary leader Toussaint Louverture from their Winter Olympics uniform. However, the designer has retained an image of his horse as a reminder of the slave revolt he led against France. Tonight's book club interview. I'll interview the author of 5 Bullets, the story of Bernie Goetz. The book covers a 1984 shooting on a New York City subway that thrust Bernard Goetz into the national spotlight for shooting 4 black teenagers whom he claimed were trying to rob him. It's time to bring the funk. Now, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, the racist that occupies the White House shared a video on his Truth Social account depicting former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama as monkeys. The video was primarily about false voter fraud claims that Trump continues to push a lie, but the racist imagery appeared at the end. This is the video.
To a DS200 tabulator, the machine that counts the votes. A Telit 4G wireless chip manufactured in Taiwan was discovered embedded into the motherboard. The voting machine tapes clearly indicate modem engagement and transmission of election data. Some of the anomalies that we noticed in the 2020 general elections, that 5 key states all stopped counting at a certain time in these key battleground states. These were all where the software, Dominion machines, ESNS machines were used, the Smartmatic, the GEMS software. So when the vote stopped counting, and this has been noted in other countries as well, President Trump was significantly ahead. When reporting and counting resumed, there was a massive spike occurred that favored Joe Biden.
Don't
initiated by
record it. Don't switch to me. Show the end. Then freeze it.
That favored Joe Biden.
That was now immediate backlash across the political landscape. Okay, so Deadline.com asked the White House for a response. This is what Carolyn Levitt, the chief White House liar, said in response to this video. Come on, guys, come on. Thank you. This is from an internet meme video depicting President Trump as the king of the jungle and Democrats as characters for the Lion King. Please stop the fake outrage and report on something today that actually matters to the American public. Well, here's the problem. There are no monkeys in the Lion King. All of a sudden, folks responding. Maryland Governor Wes Moore. The president's post on Truth Social goes beyond a dog whistle. It is blatant racism, relying on imagery that has long been used to demean and dehumanize black people. But this moment is about more than a single post. The words our leaders choose matter. The images they invoke matter. It shapes how we see one another and the kind of country we are deciding to be. Leadership is about bringing people together, not tearing each apart. Republican Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi said, this is totally unacceptable. The president should take it down and apologize. Now, it went on and on and on. Now, of course, that MAGA leprechaun, comedian Terrence Williams, he put out fake news alert. Trump didn't post this monkey video of the Obamas lying Democrats. It's not on his page. Fake screenshot. No, Terrence, you're a liar. And that's exactly what you do. You lie over and over and over again. And so you lied about this here. Now, a black MAGA supporter, international singer Mary Milliman, she actually posted this. The president's True Social post of former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama is the most racist and offensive post I've ever seen. It is completely beneath the American presidency and most importantly, is opposite of the spirit of God. It is rather the spirit of Jim Crow. POTUS, Black America is America. Take it down and do better. South Carolina Republican Tim Scott posted this. He said it's the most. He said first of all, he said I hope this is fake. He said, but this is the most racist thing. This is what he said. Praying it was fake because it's the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House. The president should remove it. Now remember what I said. The White House initially defended it, but then all of a sudden, about around noon, they took it down. Now, according to several social media outlets, Senator Tim Scott called Trump. Trump talked to him, and then after their call, he said that they took it down and say, oh, they blamed a White House staffer. Now, we always known who he was. Remember, when he said Obama wasn't born here in America, and then he kept pushing that lie. Now, remember when he also ran the first time, 2015? Remember when Lindsey Graham actually had some balls? When he actually had some guts? When he wasn't kissing Trump's ass? This is what South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham actually said about the racist Donald Trump in 2015.
I want to talk to the Trump supporters for a minute. I don't know who you are, and I don't know why you like this guy. I think what you like about him, he appears to be strong when the rest of us are weak. He's a very successful businessman, and he's going to make everything great. He's going to take all the problems of the world and put them in a box and make your life better. That's what he's selling. Here's what you're buying. He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party. He doesn't represent the values that the men and women who wear the uniform are fighting for. I've been in the Air Force for 33 years. I retired this June. He's the ISIL Man of the Year, by the way. He just got back from Iraq a week ago this Monday.
I know. We interviewed you live from there. You were with Senator John McCain, and you were going into Iraq to get a status report. What were they saying there about all of this?
The military leadership and the diplomatic corps. Now, we have young men and women in harm's way all over the world, particularly in the Mideast. They were concerned about this rhetoric because the enemy will use it against us. So what was a concern last week has to be DEFCON 4 this week. Because what Mr. Trump is doing, and I don't think he has a clue about anything, he's just trying to get his numbers up and get the biggest reaction he can. He's putting our soldiers and diplomats at risk. He's empowering the enemy. And this ban, if it's actually enacted, would take people who have been interpreters, who came to our side in Iraq and Afghanistan, who are under siege in their own countries, and basically becomes a death sentence for them.
Now, that's when Lindsey Graham wasn't an ass kisser. He's a total ass kisser right now. This is Republican Senator John Curtis of Nebraska. The post was blatantly racist and inexcusable. It should never have been posted or left published for so long. Again, this is a Republican here. This is Republican Mike Turner, who's running for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. I do not feel the need to respond to every inflammatory statement made by the White House. Right there, that says a whole lot. However, the release of racist images of former President Barack and First Lady Michelle Obama is offensive, heartbreaking, and unacceptable. President Trump should apologize. So he goes further. He's saying don't just delete, he should apologize. Now, for a long time, let's see here, Black Republicans in Congress, other than Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, they posted, oh, he called the White House and was told it was a staffer, and that was it. No statement, no nothing. Coward. Wesley Hunt, Congressman from Texas, nothing. Coward. For the longest, Burgess Owens, former NFL player, congressman from Utah, didn't say anything. An hour ago, He finally tweeted, I'm aware of the Truth Social post that circulated earlier. The imagery was wildly offensive and inappropriate. And as a black man, I find it especially troubling. It never should have been shared or even created. And I'm glad it has been taken down. Reports indicate it may have been posted in error by a staff member, but regardless, we all have a responsibility to use care and good judgment with the content we produce and distribute. But we know who this racist is. We know exactly who he is. And so Donald Trump showed us exactly who he has always been. So let me see right here, because yesterday you had the National Prayer Breakfast, and you got so-called Christian leader Franklin Graham. Let me this it? Come on, go my iPad. 8 hours ago, all he tweeted was, the Bible teaches that life does not end at the cemetery. There's a future life with God for those who put their trust in his son, Jesus Christ, quoting his dad. Yep. Franklin Graham, he ain't said a damn thing. That ain't no shock. Let's see Trump's other White House sycophant, Paula White Kane. Let's see here. Let's see. All she says is, don't allow the enemy to plant seeds of doubt in your mind or uproot anything that contradicts what God says about you. That was 4 minutes ago. Nothing else. She got some other thing, some revival, her and her husband. That's it. You can't declare negative things over yourself and expect to live a positive. Nothing right there. Let's see. Nothing right there. Let's see. Nothing right there. And that's it. Yeah, hey, nothing Paula White. Not a damn thing. She ain't said nothing at all. I'm gonna look up in a second. Hold on. Let's see what that meant. Let's see what the help Vernon Jones. Let's see if he said anything. He kissed more MAGA ass than Melania. So let's see Vernon Jones, huh? He probably let's see. His Twitter feed, nothing. He talking about. Come on, go, guys. Can you please switch? Thank you. Go my 8 hours ago, nothing. So yeah, Vernon ain't said nothing. So that's no shock right there. I could pull up a whole bunch of other these Negroes, these MAGA Negroes, ain't said nothing. Dinesh D'Souza, Indian American, he actually laughed it off. Let me show you what this fool said. This fool actually said, let's see here. In context, this is both amusing and harmless. We're not in the mood to fall for another race hoax from the left. Well, Dinesh, if it's a race hoax, why did they admit that it was posted by, and it was a fault of a White House staffer? See, this is what happens when you kiss so much MAGA ass. You defend their bullshit, and even when they did it, you look like a damn fool. Candace Kelly, legal analyst and host of Not All Hood, South Orange, New Jersey, joins us. Ashley Etienne, former communications director for Vice President Kamala Harris and Speaker Nancy Pelosi, joins from D.C. And also joining us, Matt Manning, civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi. Glad to have all three of y'all here. Here's the thing here. I'm going to start with you, Ashley. Donald Trump has said so many racist things, so many sexist things, so many misogynistic things. He's been uncouth. He has been despicable. He showed us yesterday completely not like a Christian speaking at the National Prayer Breakfast. But MAGA says, doesn't matter. We have no problem. I was very surprised to see right-wing, big-time Christian Eric Erickson actually call out what he had to say. In fact, that was this that was his one tweet. He posted FFS, which, for fuck's sakes, that's what that means. And he was just like, really? And so he's been criticizing others who've been responding. But see, here's the deal, Ashley. All this other stuff beforehand, Eric would often say, well, I voted for Trump because he was better than whatever option they had. And that right there for Trump is like, I can do whatever I want. I can keep employing racists. I can keep employing people who admitted have a Nazi streak, Paul Ingratiate. He still is employing that Nazi-loving ICE attorney in Dallas. Donald Trump has said, no more rules, no repercussions. If you are racist and sexist, guess what? it's good. It's all good in the hood. We all good right here. You can do whatever you want in the MAGA neighborhood.
Absolutely. And not only has it been sanctioned by the MAGA wing of the Republican Party, but it's also been to a degree sanctioned by the Supreme Court and almost every institution up and down and across America. And I think that's the part that's sad. I mean, I don't have any faith or any hope in any of these white Christians. Remember, Christianity sanctioned slavery and the subjugation of women and Black people and brown people. So I don't have much faith in that. But here's the way I sort of see this is Donald Trump has this really sick obsession with the Obamas, and it's really become a pattern of escalation. To your point, it started out with birtherism, but then it escalated to the point of Trump saying that Obama committed treason. And just this past weekend, he tweeted out that Obama should be jailed, that he should be arrested. So that's really what we're seeing. And so, it's one thing for people to object to this image, which that everyone's justified, obviously, in objecting to it. But it's these other things that I think are sort of going under the radar that are really even more problematic for me, especially when you look at what's happening on Capitol Hill. They're going to be taking potentially a vote to hold Clinton in contempt, which would open the door to go after Barack Obama for any of these things that Donald Trump has falsely accused him of. So really, it's really the pattern of escalation that really concerns me most as it relates to the former president.
Well, it's real simple, Candace. He's jealous as hell of Obama. He hates the fact that America and the world loved Obama. He hates the crowd sizes. He hates everything that he received. Donald Trump is such a narcissistic asshole. He wants adulation. This fool literally has said to New York City, put my name on Penn Station. And what's the other? There's two things he said. Oh, Dulles Airport. Put my name on Dulles Airport. Put my name on Penn Station, or I'm not sending y'all the money.
Yeah. And let's add to that I can be in New York City and I can shoot anybody that I want in Times Square. But just like was spoken, it really is the escalation of things that are going on. And when you said that, this has to do with just a lot of jealousy and the fact that there's this obsession with the Obamas, lest we forget becoming, and the fact that becoming Black women across America, people of color, put her back on Netflix at the time where Melania was supposed to be in the spotlight. That did not make them happen. And I don't think that we should forget the timing of that and the fact that it is now in the kids section of Netflix. So when we look at all of this, we also have to look at the fact that this particular video had to do with voting. This is another obsession that he has. So he's got all these obsessions. It's like he is thinking about it night after night, and then he posts whatever he wants to blame it on someone as if it was some type of mistake. Now, we all know that sometimes you do not post directly. You have a mechanism or a platform where it can be posted. But to blame this on someone, you don't have that much oversight over your feed where somebody could actually have created a mistake. We do not believe this. I am unshocked. This is not something that is surprising. And this is something that he is doing just across the board in terms of making sure that Black folks are dehumanized and Black folks are put in a place that is lesser than, so that he can continue to just, hit the beat to his base. That's what I see going on here.
Before I go to Matt, this is what House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries had to say.
This disgusting video posted by the so-called president was done intentionally. Donald Trump and his vile, racist, and malignant behavior. This guy is an unhinged bottom feeder. President Obama and Michelle Obama are brilliant, caring, and patriotic Americans. They represent the best of this country. It's time for John Thune, Mike Johnson, and Republicans to denounce this serial fraudster who's sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue pretending to be the President of the United States.
Yeah, Matt, he did say F Donald Trump. Wasn't that a song that Nipsey Hussle was on? Well, go ahead.
Well, and he also air traffic controlled. I love Jeffries, but he's funny when he talks. But in any event, you got to really suspend disbelief to think this was a staffer I think what Ashley and Candace have said have already covered most of the bases here. But what really frustrates me immensely about this is Trump has already created this environment where he foments this kind of hate among, the MAGA base across the country. So you might as well just say it with your chest and go ahead and accept it. But the BS excuse that it was some staffer, you didn't catch it before it went out. I saw one rationalization on social media where they said this was a part of a larger parody of The Lion King. I think you said that earlier. But here's the thing. I have been under a rock your entire life to not understand that the depiction of Black Americans as apes is a very long, super racist trope. So the idea that somehow you didn't catch that, or the idea that maybe this was an errant posting, is complete BS. And I don't understand why at this point, with all the other things you've already espoused in that racist White House, why don't you just say this with your chest and admit this is what it is? And I'm glad there are some people calling it out, but what I don't like is the equivocation, where there are people saying, well, other presidents have said things they shouldn't say, or otherwise softening it. This is per se racist. It is blatant racism against people we know you hate. You've hated since before you got into office, and there's no way to rationalize this whatsoever. So I think you should just accept it if you're Trump at this point. But we know it's BS, and we know some staffer didn't post it. We know he posted it to get the exact reaction that is, been responded to.
Folks, again, I mean, listen, this thing was up early this morning, didn't come down till noon. C-SPAN has a show where they have people from the left and the right call in. This is a three-time Trump voter speaking right here.
We're an open forum. Any public policy or political issue, news of the day. John in New Mexico, Republican.
Hello, is that me?
That's you.
Oh, my word. I am a registered Republican. My dad was the president of American Pipeliners Association, so I came by it rather naturally. Voted for the president, supported him, but I really want to apologize. I mean, I'm looking at this awful picture of the Obamas. What an embarrassment to our country. All this man does is tell lies. He is not worthy of the presidency. He takes bribes blatantly, and now he's being a racist blatantly. They were supposed to deport the dangerous criminals. They were not supposed to go after small children, storm schools, bring terror upon,
Now, it's a much longer video. I'm glad these people actually are finally waking the hell up. But here's the reality. The reality is, it is so many of them, they will excuse any and everything. They will immediately go, fake news. It's fake. It's a hoax. It's not real. This is what they do. And this is what I keep trying to explain to people. And all this bullshit about, no, but we got to reason with them and talk to them. No, 90 million people didn't vote. I'm not talking to those assholes. I'm going to go talk to the folk who didn't vote to say, hey, here's what's going on. The only way you shut these people down, because the House Republicans, they ain't got no guts. The House Republicans, the House Senate, they ain't got no guts. Sorry, the Senate Republicans ain't got no guts. The way you shut them down, you have to literally vote these people out. And that means take their asses out at the ballot box in November in the House and the Senate. You can't deal with the White House until 2028, but you can strip his ass of power in the House and the Senate.
No, absolutely right. But can I just add a little something to the conversation? What I think Donald Trump was trying to do, especially posting that video during Black History Month, is it was a clear effort to provoke Black people into action. He's tried everything imaginable, sending the National Guard to our cities to terrorize our cities. He's, dismantled all DEI programs across the government, which led to the firing of thousands upon thousands of Black women. He's attacking DEI all over, institutions all over the country. In addition to that, rolling back provisions at DOL and DOD now for minority distinctions for minority-owned businesses. So he's trying everything possible to actually provoke Black people into taking action. And history tells us one thing, which is that race is actually the most reliable trigger of political mobilization, even on the right and on the left, among Black and among white people. But what we're not doing is actually taking his bait. And to your point about voting and being engaged, we're not taking Trump's bait on his own terms, but we cannot ignore the hook. And the hook right now is that Black people are in this silent crisis right now. 450,000 Black women are out of a job. We're at 8.5% unemployment. So what we need to be doing is not just this discipline resistance, but also in this moment, look to doing some institution building, because we're just at the mouth of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. And obviously, you're going to have folk, Candace, who say, oh, you're all up in arms over this whole thing, and should be. But again, you can express outrage. You can demand folk say something. But people need to understand, this ain't the first time. He been saying racist shit for a long time. His whole career got started denying apartments in New York City to Black people. I don't give a damn how many pictures Donald Trump takes with Black people, entertainers and celebrities. Let's remind folk in Django Unchained, okay? Guess what? The Leonardo DiCaprio character, he loved his Stephen. And his Stephen loved him. You had some white slave masters who loved their house Negroes. So let's be real clear. Just because you took some pictures and were around Black people, don't mean you couldn't stand Black people.
You know, I'm just surprised really that Tim Scott, if I can just say this, that he picked this time to actually step forward and say this is the racist thing to come out of the White House.
So let me tell you what happened. So let me give you the background, because I was talking to them today. A group of Black Republicans had a call this morning. And basically, what was decided was Tim is going to fire the first shot across the bow. And what was communicated to the White House was, if y'all don't take this down, this is a red line. So there were a number of very prominent Black Republicans, not Burgess Owen, I'm talking about real Black Republicans, 3-4 generation Black Republicans, who made it clear, you don't take it down, we're about to come out blasting your ass. So the Scott tweet was a part of that to get their attention, and then the Scott phone call. That's the backstory.
And still, out of everything that's happened in the history of Donald Trump, he decided that this was the time he was going to be fully where he is. Granted, your story obviously played a part in it. But when we think about everything that he has done, Donald Trump, when we think about the history and the power that the Supreme Court has given him and what he has been doing in order to exercise every single thing on the books, off the books, and create new books in order to reinstate his power in areas where it never, ever existed. The Tims, the Marys, all the things that have been talked about in the history of all of this. Listen, this was egregious, we know. But all the other egregious things, the fact that they are not rallying around that, difficult to wrap my head around. But I do understand the process. I just think this is one of the things where, again, we are unsurprised about all of this. So while it is, something that we should be talking about, and certainly all of the things that happen behind the scenes got this tweet to be taken down, it's something that we know that we're going to see more of it. This is what he does. This is how he actually rallies people around a subject that really, when we look at other things that are going on in the world, this is just another distraction. So it's a rallying point for everybody and a reminder of what we already know and been seeing for years and what we're going to be seeing, Roland, for years to come.
Matt?
I mean, in 1989, Donald Trump took out a full-page ad saying, bring back the death penalty in response to the Central Park Five. We've known who he was for a very long time. People voted for him as a known quantity. They voted for him after his first stint in office. They voted for him every time he said something else racist. They voted for him when they knew crazy-ass Stephen Miller was in his White House, basically trying to emulate a 1930s Nazi Germany. None of these things are new. These are things that people have accepted and they have chosen. And now they're trying to draw lines in the sand as though this is beyond the pale. But it's been beyond the pale since before he got into office. So he's a known quantity you've chosen up until this point. None of this should be surprising to anyone.
So let me go ahead and speak to, there's several people I need to speak to on something right now that really is important. And it's amazing. Matter of fact, let me do this first. Have any of y'all? Let's see what that member of the Help, Lorenzo Sewell. You know, the fool who gave that awful damn sermon, the awful damn prayer. Let's see here. I'm checking his Twitter feed. I don't see anything. So let me go on here and go over the threads. See, that's that little short, other little MAGA leprechaun who Trump came to his church, and he's been kissing MAGA ass ever since. Yeah, Lorenzo Sewell. Let me see what he said. Nothing. See, it's amazing that, and it's the same little fool who yesterday said, Polar spoke the truth today. This is the National Prayer Breakfast. Polar spoke the truth today and set souls free. The Democrats are a faithless party, and they cheat in our elections and steal our resources. But real Donald Trump let the international faith community know he means business. Yeah, you a dumbass. But he ain't said nothing about the racist video today. Let me also tell you who ain't said nothing. This here, MAGA-loving Negro from Florida. Go ahead and go to my iPad. This is Bishop Kevin Kobaris. Or is it Kelvin? Let's see, is it Kevin or yeah, it's Kelvin. Kelvin Kobaris. Okay, now you might have seen him at the White House. He's been at the White House and he's been at the faith stuff, praying with Trump, praying over Trump, and all this sort of stuff along those lines, and doing that. But you know what? His ass silent on social media today. Oh, I mean, so right, if I sit here and let's see here, this is his Twitter feed. Now go back. Okay, so yeah, you got all the I'm at the prepping the checklist with Paula White for tonight's special Easter dinner with the president. I see that. Oh, I see the video of him. Oh yeah, this is him talking in front of the White House. Yeah, I see you, Kelvin. This is him, other videos, and he's sitting here. Oh, so he is a Trump-loving Negro. That's him with Paula White again. There he is again. That's right. Oh, with Franklin Graham and all of them. Oh, look at them just at the White House. And so, yeah. But when it comes to the racist video, Kelvin ain't said nothing publicly. Now, maybe he communicating with folk on the slide, but he ain't said nothing publicly. See, I'm gonna tell you right now, if you a member of so-called Bishop Kelvin's church, last I checked, preachers are supposed to speak truth. But he's silent. Because see, this is what happens when you trying to stay in the big house. See, when you trying to stay in the big house and not get sent to the fields, then what you have to do is do the bidding of Massa. And that's Bishop Kelvin Kobaris. And all the other black folk who running around Donald Trump kissing his feet. Now, we've shown you actual white Republicans who have called this thing out. In fact, I didn't even read. Hell, Representative Mike Lawler, he sat here and called that thing out in terms of, and said it's just straight up wrong, blasting what took place. I mean, again, so if white Republicans have the audacity and the unmitigated gall to call out Trump's racism, how is it that his Negro handlers like Sewell, Lorenzo Sewell, and Kelvin Kobaris, why y'all so quiet? See, I love it when y'all put on y'all the social media that you're truth tellers. What about this truth? What about the lying? I mean, I would think, like, Lorenzo Sewell so stupid. Donald Trump yesterday at the prayer breakfast took credit for a prisoner being released by the Sudanese. That happened under Obama. Oh, but Sewell said Trump was speaking truth and setting the captives free. I guess for Lorenzo Sewell, a lying occupant of the White House is Christian-like. But see, this is part of the problem. Part of the problem is when you have these soulless Negroes, S-O-U-L-L-E-S-S, who are afraid to say what's right. Now, again, I done smacked Senator Tim Scott on many occasions, but at least I'll give him the credit for putting him on blast publicly and then telling him personally that what he put out was racist and wrong, and then all of a sudden he took it down. But you got to be really awful at what you do to be a black, to be a so-called preacher, to be a black preacher, and for you to be silent in the face of racism. But then again, when your focus is doing the MAGA dance, then again, when your focus is to keep getting your invitations and then them allowing you to say a prayer in front of the other crazy, deranged, white, right-wing evangelicals, see, now we understand. And so, don't please, during Black History Month, I don't want to hear any of you so-called black preachers who kiss more MAGA ass than Melania saying anything, because you clearly have made it perfectly clear that you won't speak truth to power, that you are happy being in the back of the bus saying, yes, sir, no, sir, what you need, sir, can I get you some water, sir, can I shine your shoes, sir? That's what you're doing. And so, Bishop Kelvin Corbaris, if you truly are a man of God, what you got to say? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't hear anything because your trifling ass is silent. I'll be right back.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Succession. We're hearing that word pop up a lot these days as our country continues to fracture and divide. But did you know that that idea, essentially a breaking up of the USA, has been part of the public debate since long before and long after the Civil War, right up to today? On our next show, you'll meet Richard Crichton, the author of this book, who says breaking up this great experiment called America might not be such a bad thing. That's on the next Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
What's up? It's Talib Kweli. I'm CEO. This is the Black Star Network.
Wants to whitewash American history. America celebrating the 250th anniversary this year. And so what are they doing? They are doing all they can to remove any references to the racists and the slave owners and the bigots and all the other realities of American history, because in their eyes, let's just say, no, they have been great and wonderful and amazing patriots. Now, we told you yesterday about the Medgar Evers story. Looks like those pamphlets have been returned. The Park Service claimed that they simply ran out of them. That's why they got removed. But it's amazing how they got returned the day after the news story broke about them going missing. Well, in Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia is suing Donald Trump and the administration as a result of them taking down an exhibit there that tells the history of this country. When it comes to, and the real truth as it relates to Independence House. See, they thought that the black mayor and the black folks in Philadelphia were somehow going to just roll over and take this, but I think they actually forgot the history of black people in Philadelphia, the history of Negroes. Back then they called them colored folk who resisted and who were free black people, just so people understand the history of black folks in Philadelphia. And so this monument, the President's House, it was the home to slaveholding George Washington and also President John Adams. And so they have been hiding this information. It's now being taken down. But one of the folks who's been kicking butt and taking names is attorney and civil rights activist Michael Cord. He was granted access to the secret location where the federal government has stored the Freedom and Slavery in the Making of a New Nation exhibit. He joins us right now. Michael, glad to have you here. So give folks an update as to where we are. Philadelphia is suing. What is the administration saying? Is the plan to keep this thing private, or is it going to get returned to its rightful place?
Well, first of all, Roland, I really appreciate being on your show. And I'm going to try to be cool and composed, but I feel like a groupie around you. Like I want to ask for your autograph. I'm going to try to be as cool and composed as possible. And I really mean that. You and I have a mutual friend, Dr. Greg Kamafi Carr.
Yes, sir.
Any friend of his is a great friend of mine. So I mean what I say about you and your show. You're the blackest guy on TV and radio. Having said that, it's a long, convoluted story, but I'll give you the 1 minute, 2 minute version. It goes like this. Back in 2002, a group of angry black folks in Philadelphia, we formed an organization called Avenging the Ancestors Coalition, ATAC. And we did that 24 years ago, Roland, because we found out in 2002 that the Liberty Bell Center, which was at 5th and Market, was going to move 1 block west to 6th and Market. What a lot of people didn't know, and what we eventually found out, is that 6th and Market Street site is where America's first White House stood, where George Washington and John Adams resided from 1790 to 1797. I'll fast forward by saying we then found out that George Washington, among the 316 African descendants he had enslaved at his Mount Vernon, Virginia plantation, he enslaved 9 of them in Philadelphia at America's first White House. So this group that I founded, ATTAC, ATAC, Avenging the Ancestors Coalition, we protested, we demonstrated, we organized, we rallied. And for 8 years, Roland, from 2002 until 2010, 8 solid years, on December 15, 2010, we cut the ribbon for the grand opening of the first, I repeat, the first slavery memorial of its kind on federal property in the history of the United States of America. Never happened before. Roland, everything was great until it wasn't. And it wasn't 15 years later when the guy in the White House issued dozens and dozens of executive orders when he was inaugurated in January. Every single one that pertained to black people was anti-black, anti-DEI, anti-critical race theory, anti-affirmative action. We saw that in January. Fast forward to March. He then says, hey, I'm looking around the country. I'm seeing all these federal historical sites. And what he meant was, Roland, they're too black. But the terminology he uses that they inappropriately disparage Americans past and living. But he meant they're too black. That's March. Fast forward to May. He has his hitman, Interior Department Secretary Doug Burgum, to target Philadelphia and what we call the President's House Slavery Memorial. He gave it a 120-day deadline, which means as of September 17, it could have been shut down. But nothing happened in September. Nothing happened in October, November, December. And like a thief in the night, in this case, a thief in the broad daylight, at 2:57 p.m. on Thursday, January 22 of 2026, he ripped out and vandalized all the historic information about slavery at America's first White House. Fast forward to a lawsuit filed by the city. My group then got in because the city makes a technical contractual argument, a great argument, but they don't touch race. Our group, ATTAC, we have a powerhouse team of lawyers. We have the professor of law from University of Penn Law School. We have the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, and we got a big white collar firm doing pro bono. The city's got a great lawsuit. We like ours better, Roland, because we include the racial component. We add the 14th Amendment of equal protection. We're fighting a good fight. And final thing I'll say, Roland, is this. We're taking a page out of the civil rights struggle of the 50s and 60s. We're raising hell on the streets and raising issues in the courtrooms. We're winning, Roland. We're winning.
I'm glad you made that last point. I literally did a show earlier and I said, this is what has to happen. The lawyers got to do their part. The streets got to do their part. The suites got to do their part. And then we all got to do our political part in order to effect change.
Absolutely. That's the only way it's going to work. Every time there's been movement for black people in America, it wasn't just the activists. It wasn't just the lawyers. It was them coming together. And that's what we're doing. And Roland, we got a big rally, a citywide rally where we're basically shutting down the biggest street in Philadelphia, Market Street, this coming Tuesday, February 10 at 3:30, a mega massive rally. And we have 3 goals, Roland. 1 is to restore the site. 2 is to enhance the site. And 3, to replicate the site and sites like it all across the country. When I say black people are coming together, in fact, always been together in this movement, but now, Roland, there are white folks coming in. We are a multicultural, interfaith, and widespread politically. Everybody's come in because it comes down to this, Roland. If you want to make the argument that George Washington was a great general, go ahead and make that argument. If you want to make the argument that George Washington was a great president, go ahead and make that argument. But we ask this question: can you be a great human being when you hold 316 fellow human beings, including the 9 in Philly, in brutal bondage under slavery? We're fighting a good fight, Roland, and we're winning.
Questions from the panel. Matt, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry.
The question I have is, can you hear me, brother? Okay. My question is, can you explain, please, the equal protection part of this? I see that y'all filed an amicus brief, and I'm very interested in seeing exactly how you framed it out, because I'm glad you mentioned that the city's argument is primarily contractual, which is interesting, but there's definitely an important part for the courts to know how people are being divested of Black history. Would you speak a little further on that and how y'all are approaching that?
Yes, great question. Thank you very much. We knew what was coming. I mean, if you knew the history of that guy in the White House since the 70s and what he did to Black folks, it's no surprise. Central Park 5, no surprise. What he said about African country, no surprise. So we knew what was coming. In this case, we have a situation where it's not just Philadelphia's President's House Slavery Memorial. The first incident of an attack on these type of sites was, we've all seen the picture of Whipped Peter, also known as Gordon, the Black man with all the scars from the whipping on his back. That was taken out of a historical site in Alabama. So we knew what was coming. So this is not just a one-shot deal. What this guy in the White House wants to do is he wants to erase the history of America. He wants people to think that America was this nation shining on a hill. It is not. It's a nation that has the blood, sweat, and tears of my ancestors. Many people try to make the argument that America is a great country. America is a prosperous country. It's only quote unquote great or prosperous because for 246 years, 1619 to 1865, the blood, sweat, and tears of my ancestors, your ancestors, Roland ancestors, all of our ancestors built this country. So I want people to understand that this thing in Philly is not the first attack on American history. It's one of many, unless we stand up and fight back. And you notice I said an attack on American history, because we're not going to pigeonhole ourselves and say, oh, he's attacking Black history. Yeah, he's doing that. But what he's doing at America's first White House is an attack on American history. That's why whites, Blacks, liberals, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans, we all got to come together and save American history.
Candace?
First of all, thank you for all of your work. I mean, you've been planting those seeds for years, and it's grown something really beautiful. I understand that the judge in this case is going to go down and visit the 34 panels that are in storage, as well as visit the site. And I'm wondering, what do you think her goal is in doing that you really can't figure out otherwise? I mean, I don't know her goal of visiting that she can't figure out by sitting in her chair on the bench, quite frankly.
Excellent question. And I got to say that Roland, based on your question, is going to scoop this, because I've never shared with any TV station yet. And I've done several interviews, numerous interviews, and nobody asked that question you just asked. Here's what happened. We were in court last Friday, federal court, and the city was making its argument, our attorneys making their argument. And at one point during the arguments, the judge said to the government attorneys, hey, what is the condition of the items that were taken from the President's House Slavery Memorial? And the government attorney, he was weaseling and not giving a direct answer. And very rarely do I give Republican appointees credit for anything. But this judge, Judge Ruth, R-U-F-E, was appointed by Bush. And I was pleasantly surprised at how she was grilling the Trump administration lawyers. And when she didn't get a direct answer from him as to the condition, that Friday she said, I want to go on Monday and actually see them, because she's saying, I'm seeing and hearing rumors that it might be damaged, might not be damaged. I want to see them. Long story short, that was the hearing on Friday. The lawyers were supposed to meet with the judge at 10 o'clock that Monday at the National Constitution Center, because we found out rather cryptically where they were. The first thing the judge said to the government attorneys where are the interpretive panels? His answer was, they're on the grounds of the National Constitution Center. The judge says, what does that mean? Are they inside? Are they outside? On the shed? Where? And we got this convoluted answer that the 34 interpretive panels were thrown onto a pickup truck, driven about 2.5, 3 blocks away, and placed on the grounds of the National Constitution Center. What that means is, and we never knew this before, the federal government owns part of the land where the National Constitution Center exists. The National Constitution Center does not own that. So the federal government has its little place where it put them. Now, you notice I said its little place because we were sworn to secrecy. For security reasons, the judge asked all the lawyers not to disclose exactly where we went to see them. But I can say it is on the grounds of the National Constitution Center. We saw all 34, and the best way to describe the condition is like this. Imagine somebody taking the Liberty Bell and throwing it in Uncle Joe's garage. That's what we had. We had these 34 interpretive panels. I'd say 20 were ceramic and glass, and the remainder was metal. The ceramic glass could have easily and still could be destroyed. They're leaning up against a cement wall and on a cement floor. And the metallic interpretive panels are beginning to bow and bend. It's total disrespect. I can't say that any of the 34 were quote unquote damaged, but that's not the point for me. It's worse than damage, it's desecration, because the way these items were taken from America's first White House at 6th and Market, that's hallowed ground, historic hallowed ground, and it was defiled. And when you defile historic hallowed ground, you engage in desecration. So we went on Monday. I did not like what I saw in Uncle Joe's garage.
Ashley?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm curious what you think about how the president's efforts to rewrite American history in this particular case specifically is backfiring on him. Because to some degree, we're elevating Black history. We're elevating these relics, and to your point, these hallowed grounds, and telling these stories that really were not told at this scale until he started to attack them, defile them, to your point. So I'm just curious what your take on that perspective and how it's enabled more Americans, non-Black Americans, to become more engaged in these particular issues, to find the president's actions even more offensive and egregious because of now their awareness of this level of Black history.
I'm so glad you asked that question. I'm going to give you a 30-second answer. The way I describe it is that the guy in the White House poked a sleeping bear. And by poking the bear, people rose up. Prime example, people of different races, different political parties. Here in Philadelphia, there's a Republican by the name of Sam Katz. He's run for mayor a number of times, white, middle-aged Republican. I am a Pan-African socialist. You got this white, middle-class Republican and Michael Cord, a Pan-African socialist, standing together, fighting to protect the site. So what the guy in the White House did, he brought disparate parties together to build a bigger, stronger argument. Had he ignored the site, nobody would be talking about it. So in a warped kind of way, I'm glad he did what he did, because it woke the sleeping bear, and now we're roaring.
All right, then. Well, look, great job. Again, this is the kind of action that we need, putting pressure on these folks, letting them know that we're not playing around. And again, for all the people who don't understand this, this also requires us to be maximizing our vote. I went to Philadelphia 2 or 3 times during the 2024 presidential race. When you look at the polling numbers, there was a lot of our folks who stayed home on the couch, and now folk realize that that was not a good idea. And look, I'm very clear. Ain't no perfect candidates. Ain't nobody who I agree with everything, and they somehow are these great, amazing people. But what I can say is I know what our world would look like if Kamala Harris was sitting in the Oval Office and not this corrupt thug And so this is what our folk have to understand when it comes to the House, when it comes to the Senate, when it comes to the governor's mansion. And there's no better way to show these folks our power than to bounce their ass out of office.
I got to tell you, Roland, thank you. And I thank the other two, all three of you. You made some great comments, asked some great questions. If I can, Roland, we're encouraging people to go to our Instagram site. Go to President House, Save Our President House. So if you go to social media, if you go to Instagram, just type in Pres House Coalition, Pres House Coalition, or hashtag Tell the Truth. We encourage folks to join with us. We're not just a Philadelphia-based group. We're all across the country. Go to Instagram, Pres, P-R-E-S, House Coalition, and you'll find out everything we're doing. And we hope you all join the battle. And I want to thank all three of you, especially Roland. And Roland, I need that autograph.
We'll definitely make that happen. And y'all, they have 314 followers on the Instagram page. It's PRESHOUSCCOALITION. I want to see them have at least 1,000. So matter of fact, it's 4,000 of y'all watching live right now. So we should easily get them to 1,000 followers on Instagram. So make that happen before I end the show. Doc, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, let's talk about Virginia, where the voters will soon have an opportunity. Well, they may have an opportunity to decide on new congressional maps. This morning, Governor Abigail Spanberger signed into law a bill that was passed by the Virginia House and Senate, led by Democrats. It establishes a new congressional map, 10 Democrats, 1 Republican. Now, Republicans are suing, saying that map, they did not follow the proper process. The Virginia State Supreme Court, they're going to be hearing that particular case. This is what Spanberger said this morning.
Our fourth and final one is the redistricting amendment. This is the work of the legislature. It's recognizing that Virginia has the opportunity and the responsibility to be responsive in the face of efforts across the country to change maps, that Virginia is moving forward with this temporary and responsive effort to redistrict. Now, I know there's many press in the room. There are multiple steps. This is the one that will enable us to move forward with this referendum. I was going to go in order, but you're right there.
I dare say that was kind of wise of her to hand that pen, Ashley, first to Yo Sarah, that Delta, Louise Lucas, because she was the one who made it clear we're going to get 10-1. And when you're the most powerful person in the Senate, you often get your way.
Yeah, you get your pin first. Exactly. And it's always the Deltas, I will tell you, that are leading. This is all, of course, obviously exciting news, but, there's still some legal hurdles that have to be overcome. We've seen where the Supreme Court just recently sanctioned or allowed the map in California. So that's incredibly promising. There's still questions about whether or not my favorite governor, Wes Moore, will do the same in Maryland. And part of this is in response, obviously, to the Republicans' efforts to rig the next election. I mean, the president, if we talk about patterns, I started our conversation with patterns. The president has a pattern of trying to cheat elections and steal elections from the American people. And so this is in a response to this, to that. And so kudos to Democrats and kudos to the governor for actually taking this decisive action, not shrinking in the face of the president's efforts again to rig and cheat the next election.
Candace.
Well, listen, this is what happens when you vote the right person into a position of power. It also speaks to a lot of things that are going around in terms of the country and how the president wants to nationalize elections and put everything under his purview. We saw what happened in Georgia. We saw what happened in Fulton County. So this is a great reminder, as you have always reminded people, that you got to get to the polls to vote in order to make things happen. This also speaks just to the power of those who are in power, the power of the pen, how quickly she was able to do this and make this happen and answer to her constituents. This is what happens when you go to the polls and make things happen.
Matt,
you can't sit home, otherwise those folks who have sat home, they're the ones who ultimately vote for whoever is in the power.
Matt?
The only thing I'll add is that I like that this is ballot measures being sent to the Virginia voters. I think, one, that's very important because that's emblematic of the greatest involvement in the democracy, right? You have the people who are voting on these amendments. But to expand this a little bit, this is also same-sex marriage. This is re-enfranchisement of people who've lost voting rights. My understanding is they sent a number of bills that are going to be ballot measures. And I think that's a really great thing. And I think Ashley hit on what I was going to talk about with the Supreme Court allowing California's map. So this is exactly why it's important to be involved in state and local races and to hold to account your state and local representatives, because you can get things done on the ground like this and then have an opportunity to vote on a ballot measure to change the Virginia Constitution, which is important because that'll make it where it's not temporary, but it'll allow the legislature or the assembly, I guess they're called, to engage in redistricting, which is important if you ever have this kind of situation come up in the future.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Haiti's story of resistance nearly didn't make it to the Winter Olympics, but an Italian-Haitian designer found a way to keep it alive. A month before the Winter Olympics, Haiti's plan to feature a painting of revolutionary leader Toussaint Louverture riding a red horse on its team uniforms was blocked by the International Olympic Committee for violating its rule against political propaganda on uniforms. In response, the Italian-Haitian designer Stella Jean and her team hand-painted a new design, removing Louverture, but keeping the verdant scenery and his charging red horse. Haiti's two-athlete team will compete wearing them, sending a message of resilience and national pride on the Olympic stage. I'm just curious, Matt, do you think if the Americans had George Washington on a horse on their uniforms, the IOC would do the same?
No, they absolutely wouldn't. They would call it history and they would lionize it. And they would say, oh, it's the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, so this is fine. They would find a way to depoliticize it. But you put Louverture on the uniform and it's now too political. I wish they would have put him and Duddy Boukman on there and just go full on, right? Particularly because of how important the Haitian Revolution is to the rest of the Western world getting rid of slavery. But in any event, I think it's BS. But, I'm glad they were able to salvage part of it. But he should have been able to stay on.
And, I mean, my goodness, this is the leader of the country. How in the hell first of all, how the hell can anybody say that it's too political, Ashley? The Olympics is all political.
Oh, absolutely. But, it is a political statement, and it's one that we should all be very proud of. And it's actually one that the entire world should embrace, which is the successful first slave revolution in the whole world. I mean, again, it is one that everyone should fully embrace. But the reality is this, even without the general on the horse, it is still an equally as powerful, if not more powerful statement, because now more people are actually engaged in the image itself, the meaning of the image, the general and the general's history. Whereas before, I think if the general were on and no one were to object to it, I'm not so sure we would be talking about this, or anyone would be talking about this all over the world. So, again, it gets back to my point, whenever hatred sort of rises up, it always backfires in the long run. And that's what we're seeing happen even with this one, that it's actually backfiring and it's forcing even more people to engage in Haitian history, Western, history and global history in a lot of ways that they probably wouldn't have before. And by the way, it's stunning. I follow fashion, so I've known Stella Jean's work for a very long time. And if you go to any of the websites, there's a lot of these fashion critics. And the first uniform they started with this cycle or this year, talking about the Winter Olympics, was her uniform and how beautiful it was. So even in their efforts to try to attempt to undermine her work, it just elevated it. It made it even more powerful.
Absolutely. Candace.
It is so gorgeous. I just want to piggyback off of what Ashley said. That's the first thing that I said. Listen, when you have history that people don't like, it stops becoming real history. And that's the situation here. Toussaint Louverture is someone who brought down a lot of white people. And a lot of white people who are in office don't like that. And as you said, if George Washington was on somebody's uniform, this would be a hurrah, especially in celebration of the 250th year of America. So we know that that is something that they are fighting all around. And, I think about the 350,000 Haitian Americans that they are trying to remove, that a judge halted, actually, in terms of going back to their to their war-torn and earthquake-torn countries, and how a stop was being put on that. So Haitians have been on the map. They are on the map, and we continue to acknowledge them and fight for them in the real world 2026 in terms of making sure that they get their due process before being deported out of here. So there are a lot of Haitian headlines this week.
Absolutely. All right, let me thank Candace, Ashley, and Matt for being on tonight's show. I certainly appreciate y'all weighing in with your commentary. Folks, the last thing we'll do before we'll go to our book interview. We've got Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
The body of rapper Lil Jon's son, Nathan Smith, has been found. Milton police say they discovered the 27-year-old in a pond near his Georgia home, just days after he was reported missing. Smith, who also goes by the name DJ Young Slade, was reported missing Tuesday around 6 a.m. Police say he was last seen running out of his home and may have been disoriented and in need of assistance. The case is still open and active. However, investigators say no foul play is suspected. Former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn is gearing up for a second attempt at a congressional seat. Dunn rose to national prominence for his testimony at congressional hearings regarding his role in defending the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Dunn will enter a crowded primary race where a dozen Democrats have already filed paperwork with the Maryland State Board of Elections. In his announcement video, Dunn says that he is tired of waiting for Congress to fulfill its responsibilities. A Georgia Army veteran is facing deportation. Godfrey Wade, a resident of Covington, has been in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody for nearly 5 months. Born in Jamaica, Wade entered the U.S. legally in 1975. He's lived here more than 50 years. He's a father of 6 and now facing imminent deportation. On September 13th, Wade was pulled over in Conyers for failing to use a turn signal. He was arrested for driving without a license. Following his arrest, ICE detained him due to a 2014 removal order related to a bounce check in 2007 and a simple assault charge in 2006. Wade's attorneys is currently appealing the denial of his emergency stay of removal. Members of Congress from both parties have written to the Department of Homeland Security, urging them to reopen Wade's case. If DHS does not intervene, Wade could be deported within days. The Trump administration is moving to sharply limit opportunities for immigrants with deportation orders to appeal their cases under a new policy. Under the proposed changes, immigrants would have 10 days to file an appeal, down from the current 30-day window. The policy posted by the U.S. Department of Justice in the Federal Register Thursday would revise multiple immigration rules, changes that advocates say could make it nearly impossible for many immigrants to challenge deportation orders. Immigration advocates are calling the move an illegal attempt to strip immigrants of due process rights. The administration argues the changes are needed to reduce a backlog of more than 200,000 immigration appeals cases. Onyx Impact, a nonprofit organization dedicated to combating digital disinformation that targets Black communities, has launched a $500,000 campaign called Invest in Black Media. The high-profile arrest of journalists Georgia Fort and Don Lemon partly inspired this year-long initiative. As part of the campaign, Onyx Impact has partnered with the National Association of Black Journalists for a special Black History Month matching effort. They're pledging to match contributions up to $100,000 for the NABJ Jubilee Endowment Campaign. Donors can visit NABJ's main donation page, where every gift will be doubled and directly invested in the future of Black journalism. This initiative builds on the more than $1 million that Onyx Impact has invested in Black media over the past 2 years. It's Super Bowl weekend. Tennessee Democratic State Representative Justin Jones delivered what he described as a public service announcement to the Republicans on the State House floor regarding the Super Bowl halftime shows. Jones wanted to remind conservatives concerned about the highly anticipated show that there's a clear distinction between Bad Bunny and Kid Rock, who is headlining the All-American Alternative Super Bowl halftime show. Roland.
All right, Brittany, I appreciate it, folks. That is it. Coming up next, we got a great book interview dealing with the Bernie Getz trial. You don't want to miss this conversation. Don't forget, y'all support the work that we do by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Support this show and this network. Contribute via Cash App using the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Click the Cash App Pay button to contribute. Also, if you want to do checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag by going to shopblackstarnetwork.com, shopblackstarnetwork.com. Go there. You can also support the Black-owned products that we have there as well. And so please support our businesses. Again, go to the marketplace at shopblackstarnetwork.com. And don't forget, download the app Fanbase and make that thing possible. Download it and follow me at Roland S. Martin on Fanbase. Folks, that's it. I'm going to see y'all on Monday. Here he is, Roland's Book Club.
Elliot, but before we get into the book, 5 Bullets, about this Bernard Goetz shooting, I think we have to really deal with the reality of history in that when we talk about crime in this country, vigilantes in this country, white people and black people and brown people, the reality is that's American history. So when this happened in 1984, it was no shock, because if you just go through American history, you see this story repeated many, many, many times.
Absolutely, Roland. And moreover, it's not just up until 1984. Let's look at the last, say, 5 or 10 years in the United States. Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Daniel Penny in New York City, even Luigi Mangione. And I know that's sort of politically in a different place than the other ones, but these are all people who, for whatever reason, chose to take the law into their hands and were celebrated by a big portion of people in America for different reasons, but were celebrated for doing, quote unquote, what a lot of folks felt needed to be done. And so, no one should nothing's shocking about the Bernard Goetz shooting. And nothing will be shocking about the fact that, like you said, vigilantism is who we are as a nation.
Yeah, and listen, black folks are very familiar where where crimes have been committed, where crimes weren't committed. You look at a lot of these lynchings that took place. I saw a video the other day of Henry Fonda talking about growing up in Nebraska and how he witnessed a lynching. Where they drugged the black man out of jail, hung him up, didn't care what the sheriff had to say, the police chief had to say, and so that angry reaction has always been at the root of when we talk about race in America, and this was no different.
Absolutely, and part of what has animated Bernard Goetz, certainly as he led up to the shooting and afterward, I interviewed him for this book, is that he felt those boys had coming to them what they had coming to them. They had criminal records, they had long criminal records, and a couple of them at least one committed really bad crimes after the Bernard Goetz shooting. But Goetz still sees it. He even reached out to me through a reporter saying, look, if you don't talk about these boys' criminal histories, this story, your book can't possibly be fair. Well, it actually can. The mere fact that someone has done something wrong doesn't entitle anyone to engage in open season on them. And Goetz in his mind really seems to think that because these boys from the hood in the Bronx had rocky histories, therefore they sort of brought their fate onto them. And that's just a common thinking throughout America,
Right, because the reality is, as Goetz is on this train, it's not like he had history with his individuals. So what? Was he an oracle? Was he prophetic? Was he sitting there, looking at them and I can read their minds and know their history? No, what he did is he looked at these individuals and made a judgment.
Yes. And let's be clear, and just to back up if there are listeners or viewers who aren't familiar with the story, real quick, Bernard Goetz in December 22nd, 1984, boards a downtown New York City subway train, sees 4 black dudes. Now, they were being rowdy. They were doing pull-ups, running around, asking folks for cigarettes and matches and making noise and goofing around, but they didn't hurt anybody. Right. So maybe definitely some of the passengers thought they were a nuisance or a bother to them, but they weren't harming or mugging or robbing anyone. They were on their way downtown to break open video game machines in order to get the coins out of them. Right. But they weren't hurting anybody on the train. Let's be clear. Regardless of what they were on the way to do, they weren't hurting anybody on the train. Goetz got on the train. One came up, asked him for $5. Goetz immediately thought he was being mugged and then opened fire. Bang, 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 bang. Shot all of them, the 4 of them with 5 bullets, the title of my book, and leaves one of them brain damaged and paralyzed and the rest of them seriously injured. He knew nothing about their criminal histories. He didn't know that they were going downtown to steal. He didn't know about their drug use. He didn't know any of that. He saw what he saw, felt he was being mugged, and opened fire.
And I was 16 years old when this happened. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people really understand the visceral reaction. First of all, it takes place in New York City, yes, media capital of the world. Yes. And this story, I mean, this is early. I mean, CNN is what, 2-3 years old.
Yeah.
So this isn't like you didn't have a Fox News. There was no MSNBC. There was no social media. But this story went wild.
Bonkers. And Roland, I'll go even further than you. Yeah, you were 16. I was 8. You look good, better than I do, despite that extra 8 years. No, but in that, look, this was formative for me because it's one of the first news story. And I grew up around New York City. I was born in Brooklyn and grew up just outside the city. My dad worked at a department store, Gimbel's, in New York City for most of my childhood, right? And so I knew that subway line. I knew, those streets and the story and the Bronx. My aunt lived there, so I get it. But this is one of my first memories of the news, Roland, really, and shaping how I saw crime and the news and safety and New York City and New Jersey and all of it. And like you said, it was seismic. This took over the world. Now, we didn't have CNN in the sense that we have it today as a sort of 24-hour entity, or Fox or MSNBC for a bunch of time later. What New York did have was tabloids, and it had the Daily News, the New York Post, Newsday, and some smaller ones. And the big one was the New York Post. Rupert Murdoch had just bought it and was shifting it toward crime, scare, and sensation stories. He sort of was a tabloid journalist at the time, or a tabloid media mogul, and really wanted to shift the New York Post into, wow, we're going to make people scared, in effect, because when people are scared, they buy more news, then they get more scared, and they buy more news. And when that's their only outlet for taking in, and the headlines are, thugs are here, you're all in danger, the city is burning, it got in people's heads, and it absolutely affected people. I would even say perhaps even more than some of the television stuff we see today.
Yeah, and when we talk about these tabloids, we're talking. I mean, if we go back to the truly wild days of William Randolph Hearst and tabloids. I mean, it was a race. If people don't understand the history of tabloids, especially New York City, it was all about what was salacious, what was the screaming headlines, and yes, the issue of race.
Yes,
that's what defined these tabloids. So if you go back to the late 1800s and early 1900s, you're talking about you had 20 and 30 plus newspapers that were fighting and vying for the attention of people and the pennies of people, and all of a sudden. Yes, when Murdoch comes along, it was it was literal war. It was I would dare say, I will call it media warfare.
No doubt.
That was playing out. Who can be the most grimy, the most grisly, the most salacious, the most racist? And in America, this is just very simple. When you put race and crime together, what you're driving is fear.
And, you're hitting every one of the major topics of the book, 5 bullets. So, Roland, so thank you so much. So number one, I have, you mentioned William Randolph Hearst. I have a line in the book about William Randolph Hearst's adage, if it bleeds, it leads. Ultimately,
there you go.
If it bleeds, if it involves violence or scares or crime or whatever else, it'll work as a news story. And I talk about that. I have a whole chapter in the book 5 Bullets about the purchase of the New York Post and everything that did, which was just a few years before the Bernard Goetz story, everything that did to just hype New York City up and create an arms race between the Daily News and the New York Post about who can be the scariest and freak people out the most. It's really a big thing and a big sort of part of this book. And crime was the motivator. And, dog whistle racism, because they didn't put black people are out to mug you, but it was a lot of winking and nodding and playing off of the racial fears of people around the city, particularly white folks in outer boroughs. If you know New York City, sort of the outer parts of Queens and Brooklyn and even the Bronx, sort of, Archie Bunker from All in the Family. He's from Queens, right? And that's the kind of folk that were sort of a big, vocal, politically active community in New York City. And a lot of sort of political action, but also media action was designed to rile those folks up and keep them buying newspapers. And a portion, not a big part of the book 5 Bullets really gets into why that was and how that helped turbocharge this Bernard Goetz story.
And it's also important where not the backdrop, it's really the crime scene. You also are talking about at a time when New York City then was not New York City now. When you talk Times Square then did not look like Times Square now. And so you what was feeding this also is a city that was run amok, a city that was seedy, that was grimy, that was nasty, that was on the downfall. And a lot of that language also was a result of white saying, look at this, look at how the city has turned with those people who have come in. And they were talking about black people. They were talking about Latinos. They were talking about Dominicans. They were talking about Puerto Ricans. That's what they were talking about. And so what you had class warfare, you had race warfare going on. And when these 5 bullets are fired, it was all of a sudden, it was basically a mushroom cloud. And we know with a mushroom cloud, there's fallout far beyond the strike zone. And that's exactly what happened with this Bernard Goetz shooting. That was massive fallout that went from New York City to the New York region to America, and yes, around the world.
We'll talk about this being about whether we want to say it was about black people or not. And it's complicated. Bernard Goetz was scared on the train. Look, the homicide rate in New York was anywhere from 1,700 and 2,000 homicides a year, which, look, real talk, that's 4 times or 5 times what the homicide rate is now. Like, y'all who think New York City is all labradoodles and glassy skyscrapers just don't remember the 1980s. It was rough. It was dirty. It was gritty. It was being bailed out by seeking bailouts from the federal government, firing teachers and police officers and sanitation workers, which actually hurt the black community because so many black folks were sanitation workers and police officers. So everything was really rough in New York City. Now, about it being about black people and blaming crime for it, Bernard Goetz is kicked off his co-op board at one point a few years before. Y'all, if you got kids here, cover your ears because it's about to get raw. He says, we can't clean this neighborhood up until we get the spics and niggers out. And all of these folks, mixed race folks, hearing said, wait, okay, dude, like, we all care about safety, but that's not cool. And they ultimately kicked him off. That comment, and he doesn't deny it. I interviewed him about it. Like, why'd you say it? What was that about? But for him, he still acknowledged, yes, it's about safety. Yes, the city's rough. Black folks want safety too. But whether he admits it or not, it's about black people, at least in part.
And what that means is, I'm thinking about Michael Richards, comedian.
Oh God!
When he went off on stage, and I remember I was on CNN talking about it, and what I said was, if it's not deeply embedded in you, then it can't come out.
Well,
so when he was like, when he goes, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
No, actually, you do. It was there. It was present. Now, you held it. You controlled it. You were able to turn it on and off. But in that moment on stage, his rage took over, and then it all came out. What you're laying out here is, for Bernie Getz, that was inside. His racial animus was already inside, built up. Yeah. And so he was just, frankly, waiting for the moment to be able for it to explode out of him and become public.
Well, two things. One, he had pulled guns on people twice before, once on a white guy, once, I believe, on a black guy. And it was sort of, he always carried guns and had them on him. So, you know, it was a matter of when, not if, number one. Number two, on this Michael Richards point, I know this ain't about my book, but let's just, you know, the Michael Richards, it's really interesting because I heard echoes of the Michael Richards story in interviewing people about Bernie Getz for the book 5 Bullets, because a lot of people, including himself, went right to, that's not who he is, that's not what's in his heart, that's not, you know, who he is, and it's just not. That line kept coming up again and again. And when I asked him about it, he said, well, I was high on weed and angel dust that night, and I wasn't really, you know, I was loose. And part of me, and I put this in the book, well, if you're high on weed and angel dust, that's lowering your inhibitions, dude. That's saying what's really on your mind, not making you hallucinate and make things up. And so, yeah, it is who you are. It is who all of us are. And this idea that people spring, you know, get overtaken by passion or fury and start saying things that really aren't them is just not true. I think the first step, Roland, to healing is the admission that, well, look, everybody's got problematic views and behaviors and racism in them. Denying that it's in there, you know, I think it is probably the biggest obstacle to progress to me.
And see, the thing here for African Americans, and this is something that white people, I think for the most part, will never accept, never will understand. That is, we have an antenna. We have been raised to have a racial antenna.
Oh yeah.
And our sixth sense is real clear in terms of judgments made about us.
Oh yeah.
And the thing here for me is, their criminal past, for me, is irrelevant to this particular point. 100%. In this moment, what he does is, all he sees are several individuals, and he sees skin color. Oh, I see their actions. This is what they're going to do. Yeah. So I'm ready to fire. And that justification for so many whites at that time, and even present day, it's as I watch what's happening right now with ICE on the streets.
Yeah.
As I watch what's happening, this notion that, oh, you look like a crook. And so for African Americans and others, this moment here, this thing played out in law offices. It played out in engineering firms, because it was the presupposition. It was, I have made a judgment about you. I know nothing about you. I know there's nothing, but all I see is this, and you ain't no good.
You know, of all the people I talk to, the single most measured, believe it or not, many people aren't going to believe this. And a lot of black folks may not believe this, but the most measured person I talked to was Al Sharpton about this shooting. And I know, you know, particularly Sharpton in the 1980s came with a lot of baggage, and you know, and I talk about it.
The large medallion.
The large medallion. I have a whole description of the man and all of that, right? And I address it. I say, here's the allegations of anti-Semitism. Here's where he was dogged by, you know, ethical questions and so on, but here's what drew many people in the black community to him, right? And so I'm very fair to Al Sharpton, about Al Sharpton, but Sharpton was the most measured about everything. Sharpton and one of the detectives, because Sharpton said to me, you know, look, and he said it back in 1985 too at a press conference. He says, this is not about these boys. If these boys broke the law, I am not here to protect these boys. I am not here to whitewash their criminal records. If they did bad things, they should go to jail too. Sharpton said it. You can check the transcript of the 1985 press conference from Bernie Getz's house. But this isn't about their criminal records. This is about what someone is allowed to do when he purports to be afraid. And if someone is lashing out, if someone is using their racial bias or even just any biases as a pretext for violent crime or a violent act, then he should pay for it. He should go to jail for it. But so Sharpton's one of the few to have taken the tack of, this isn't just a full exoneration or defense of these boys. And I think a lot of people get into that very quickly, that it's like, oh no, the boys are all great. No, this is about, no, it's not about them.
Right.
It's about Bernie Getz.
And it's about Getz, it's about mindset. And it's also about the notion that you have no problem of actually killing somebody. Even though these individuals were not murdered, one was paralyzed, the reality is they could have been. It's called just loss of life. And so when you see this notion of self-defense, I dare say, and I think it goes, even this happened before him, but when you start talking about Alec and stand your ground, a lot of that, frankly, is born out of the Bernie Getz mindset. Which now we have these stand your ground laws where, I can look at you and make it just, I now fear for my life. What was always the get out of jail free card for cops, I fear for my life, and now transferred to everybody.
Yeah. So a couple things. I have a chapter in the book, 5 Bullets, that folks should check out about the rise of the NRA. And it's interesting. The NRA really was Boy Scouts and clay shooting with grandpa for most of its existence, for 100, however long it was, up until.
First of all, people have no idea that there now are two NRAs.
Oh yeah.
There's the NRA that has training, things along those lines, what you just described.
Yeah.
Then it's that other NRA that we all know about.
Yeah, and that first NRA was the NRA until about 1977. The organization gets taken over by the activists, and they moved into Second Amendment advocacy and used the Bernie Getz case to their sort of great, they finally had a poster boy. He was perfect for what the NRA said. He's this white guy in glasses, clapping back against the violence and disorder of New York City. This was the guy for them until they realized he was a little bit off, and then they sort of backed away a little bit, but they were really into it. So that's one. And two, Roland, you raised an interesting point about self-defense, and something that I do get into in 5 Bullets is this idea when people, white and black, were suspicious of, this rush to support Bernard Getz, a lot of commentators, white and black ones, said, do people really know what it means to kill? And when you're jumping to support or rushing to support a person who attempted a murder, right? Do you, if you were on that train car, terrified for your life that this guy was going to shoot you too, would you be so in support of this action? Were you the mom of the baby that was in the train car who was scared for her life and her babies and her husband's? Would you have been so supportive of this? It's real easy from our Twitter feeds and our Instagram followers and from behind a laptop to express all this support for violence in the form of self-defense, but do you really know what it means to pull that trigger? And I think people just sort of have that intellectual disconnect where they just forget or just don't want to really realize what it means to shoot someone. And I think we lost some of that. The public lost some of that in the Bernie Getz case.
When we talk about, you just made a point about in terms of our African Americans staying on this, and it's always very interesting when we talk about crime. And I have no problem saying this when I watch these white commentators and anchors on television go, well, Roland, I mean, listen, African Americans, they don't want to defund the police. And I'm always having to explain to them that let me be real clear. Black folks say we are constituents. We pay taxes. We want services. We don't want crime. We also don't want our asses beat.
Yeah.
And so in this case here, what you had is, and this is why I think when people try to revert to their history, but you didn't know their history when you fired the gun.
Yeah.
And what black folks say is, I don't want to be on the receiving end of your gun, and then we figure out later if I was a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, it's, and I found this when I was a prosecutor too. A lot of the folks who were some of the most pro-prosecution jurors were a black brother in overalls or coveralls, or a granny who's on her stoop drinking lemonade, who doesn't like the trouble or the disorder, right? It's older black folks who want to feel safe too and don't want crime either. They also don't want their son shot by a rogue police officer. Those two things can be true, that black folks are surprisingly pro public safety to many people and surprisingly almost pro police to many people. But that also doesn't mean that you go through life expecting and just sort of accepting as a cost of doing business that it's okay to get shot by a cop. Both of those things can exist. And I think in black folks' response to the Bernie Getz shooting, including Benjamin Ward, the police chief at the time, was a black man, the first black police chief in New York City history. He said, look, I'm all for public safety, but I'm a black man and I look over my shoulder at night, both for a kid who's going to mug me, but also to make sure a cop doesn't think that I'm here to engage in some badness. And so there's a line in the book, 5 Bullets, being black in America is tough and it's complicated. And I think we all get into that.
You also have, this is 1984.
Yeah.
And I think people also can't look at this as a New York City story, because what you also had going on was the individual sitting in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
So I love when I see these people on social media who go, it's so much about race today. We didn't have racism in the 1980s. And you're like, where in the hell were you? And so you also had the situation of Reagan in the White House.
Yeah.
And the policies of Reagan.
Yeah.
The racial policies of Reagan.
Yeah.
And this was at the heart of this. How I see this book, and you talk about race, vigilantism, self-defense.
Yep.
But I would say it has to be all caps, 60 font race, because when we talk about race, we're talking about what mental, we're talking about perceptions, we're talking about y'all don't belong here. And that's the thing I think so many people, a lot of our white colleagues don't understand how deep this thing goes when we talk about race and what has been taught, what has been learned, the feelings. And I always say when we have these conversations, race is not racist. And I say, well, that ain't the issue.
It's not, no.
The issue is everything that's in between those two things.
It's, you don't have to be shooting a fire hose with dogs chasing black folks down, shouting the N-word to have done something that was racially suspect or problematic. I'm not going to call it racist, but it's not as simple as people think, black and white, literally. A couple things. So Reagan does come up in the book 5 Bullets a little bit, only to set the stage for, the kind of backdrop and the things that you and I are talking about today, Roland. But a few places where it came up, one, obviously cutting public housing funding and support, which had a drastic impact on black folks in cities in America. 2, this is less Reagan than Congress and the era at the time, but this is right when the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of, I believe, 1986 gets passed and sets the 100-to-1 crack to powder disparity and overwhelmingly passed Congress. It's not like it was split and, they barely got it through. It's, something, I don't have the vote, but it's like 97-2 or so, that kind of, maybe not that, but you know what I mean? It was an overwhelming vote in Congress to set that crack powder disparity. And even black folk, even black politicians thought, wait, crack is different than powder. It's a menace in our communities and we have to do something about it, and overwhelmingly passed Congress. That's 1 and 2. And 3, the best Reagan anecdote, and this is definitely one that I put in the book. The thing that made Reagan pro-gun control was seeing black folks with guns, Black Panthers, protesting. When he saw the images, and I talk about this in the book.
And they were lawfully, unlike Bernie Getz, they were lawfully carrying weapons.
But something about brothers in berets with and carrying AKs or whatever, or even handguns.
It was long rifles.
Yeah, that's right. They were long guns. They were long guns. On the state house in Sacramento, they protested at a few different state houses in, I guess Tacoma, Washington, Sacramento, wherever else. And Reagan saw them at a protest, marching, and you know what? Let's rethink our gun control policies. And that, for much of his career up until sort of later modern day republicanism, he was a proponent of stricter gun laws.
and I think a lot of people today, because of it being in the news, because of the Netflix documentary, they know about the Exonerated Five, the Central Park Five.
Yes.
But which took place 5 years after this.
Yes.
So if you put those two things together, this really was the precursor. This was like, this was, I hate to say a game, but this was the first half.
Oh,
but
yeah.
then, so for people who now think back to the Central Park 5 case, understand how explosive that was. It had the same setting, the same feel, all the same combustible elements.
Yes.
Of tabloids, race, crime. The difference here was in that case, you had a white woman.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The victim.
The Bernie Gates, the Bernard Gates story. This is a white man who's carrying a gun.
Yes.
Woo! When you put a white woman in the equation, we about to go to a whole different level. And I think it's important people to understand that distinction.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the two really high profile incidents, the two probably highest profile incidents, Central Park 5 and Bernard Goetz. For those who know a little more, New York City history a little bit deeply, there was like 8 of them year after year after year in New York City. You had Bensonhurst, Crown Heights, Howard Beach, Amadou Diallo, which, when you take out Crown Heights and Amadou Diallo, a bunch of them are literally white guys.
Hold up.
Hold up.
No. See, you said you had year after year. Okay. So walk through those.
Okay.
What you just described really were mostly incidents where black people were on the receiving end, and were not. See, those were deemed at. See, so the moment you said it, those were deemed as racial conflicts.
Yeah.
These were deemed as crime against white people.
That's great point. All I'm saying is why I throw them out merely because New York City in the 1980s was a powder keg when it came to race, and there was constantly some story or another with race as not the backdrop, as the fundamental core thing. Whether it's white guys with baseball bats chasing down a black dude in Bensonhurst, to Amadou Diallo being shot 42 times by police officers for holding his wallet up and thinking it was a firearm, all of them. And it was a constant simmering under the surface of New York that everybody thinks of as this progressive multiracial haven. But New York City was, and I say this having grown up around there, New York City was not racially harmonious in the 1980s.
Hell no.
Don't let anybody tell you that it was.
And you didn't even mention Tawana Brawley.
And I mentioned it in the book.
So you had this, to your point, one after another. But the reason I think these two set apart, it is because how white folks grab this.
Yeah.
Which the things that you described, you had these racial conflicts. And so, did these white kids do this? Did they chase down this black boy? Did this thing happen? No. This was white folks who, this is an affront to us.
Yeah.
This is us protecting our territory from these savages. That's literally Donald Trump taking that full-page ad out, give the Central Park 5. They deserve the death penalty.
Oh, yeah.
The vicious things that were said about these young men in 5 bullets. It's what they made out as if these were 5 serial killers who were on the loose in New York City,
no doubt,
who deserved to be taken down by this righteous man, Bernie Goetz.
No doubt.
That was basically the short view of so many folks.
And there's a quote from Alphonse D'Amato, a longtime senator for New York, the guy Chuck Schumer ultimately ended up beating in 1998. But Alphonse D'Amato saying, we are under siege. We are under attack in this city, and we the city.
And when he said "we,"
who's he talking about? Like he didn't say, but I think the implication was clear. At least the implication was clear, And, he was sort of unequivocal about that statement. So, and, you use the term savages, that's the kind of language that was used, including at the trial. It's the vultures, the savages, the lowlifes,
Savages,
the thugs,
animals.
No, they used all of them, several, and I detail some of them in the defense's closing argument. These guys are savages, lowlife, thugs, punks, animals.
And if you go back to Jim Crow America, you go back to post Reconstruction, same language used to define Black criminality, whether they actually did it or they didn't do it. You could why did you want to venture into this story?
It's a few things. It's like I said, I have personal history with this, having grown up with it. It was a formative story for me. I'm a former prosecutor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a legal analyst at CNN. I'm talking about legal issues all the time. And I found the legal backdrop of this case fascinating in that, for all the things we've talked about today, Roland, race and crime and fear, and what we allow people to do when they're afraid, who's allowed to be afraid, and who's allowed to act out on their fears, and what are the consequences when they do, are all things I've thought about for a long time. And it really was a natural fit to me to sort of explore this story after 4 decades, which, few have done, I think, in a comprehensive way. In the immediate, it's how I really landed on Bernie Getz too, is, I was poking around Wikipedia one day and thinking, what's Bernie Getz up to right now? Like, what, I hadn't thought about Bernie Getz. And then, we've all been there where you're playing around on the internet and you just end down a rabbit hole. And I thought, I bet we really need to really explore the story in the context of everything we are living with today, with vigilantism, and more than vigilantism, just safety in cities. Like, when you see, whether it's ICE or National Guard, it's all about how safe people think cities are, right? And weaponizing this idea of safety in cities. That's really what this comes down to. It's not an accident that the National Guard's deployed in big, predominantly Black, predominantly Democratic run cities, because of that sort of pervasive fear. And I just feel like the issues that animated 1980s New York and animate us today when we think about public safety are really the big thread running through this book, 5 Bullets, that I wrote.
I ask all authors this question, and I'll pose it to you.
Yes, sir.
And that is, in your writing, in your research, in your interviews, what was the wow moment? What was the thing that caused you to go, oh my God, I can't believe this person said this. I came across this.
There's a couple, but they all come in my interview with Bernard Getz. He said, he said to me when I asked him, so tell me, did you feel you committed a public service when he never used those words. Those were my words, but it was fair to ask the question, do you think you committed a public service? And he said, those guys needed shooting, for starters. That's not why I shot them, but they needed shooting. He had made this moral judgment, and my wife, who was in the next room, she could hear through because I was on speakerphone or whatever, and her jaw, just hearing him say that. And there's other stuff that he said to me too. It's vulgar. I don't know how vulgar you want me to be here, but one of them was pretty vulgar. Some of the things.
Go. Can I say it? My show's unfiltered. So no, don't worry about it. Go.
So one was, those guys needed shooting. That's why I shot them. That's not why I shot them, but they needed shooting, which was a big one. I would urge everyone to check out my Instagram feed at Elliot Williams Photos, and I have the audio of that in a post from a couple months ago, and it really just. Your jaw drops when you hear it, because it's very chilling hearing his voice, and I put that in the book. 2, when I asked him, okay, man, you've become one of the most notorious folks in New York City history on account of an action you took with a gun 40 years ago. Do you still carry guns? And he said to me, what kind of question is that? Do you still jerk off? Do you still cheat on your taxes? And I thought, Bernie Getz just asked me, even if he was just not even being glib, talking about this masturbation comment was just wild from this man. And it's just that next to last chapter of my book, where I detail my conversation with Bernie Getz, it's all wow. It's all, oh my God, is this man really saying these things to a Black man he's never met? But is he really saying these things? And he did.
That is absolutely wild. But again, it goes to state of mind. It goes to exactly who he is. And I think the lesson the lesson that we have to take from this is, and again, I'm sitting here thinking about this 1984, this particular shooting, what took place, and I'm juxtaposing it with what's happening today.
Yes.
As I laid out in my book, White Fear. I mean, the reality is this notion of white fear.
Yeah.
Has been the defining issue since the end of slavery.
Yeah.
And it permeates in everything that we do. And the judgments, the assumptions, whether you take it out of a subway and take it out of a crime-infested New York City, put it into a college classroom. I wonder if Ellie, did he get in here because of affirmative action?
Mm-hmm.
Does he belong? Is he legitimate to be here? It's there. And for folk who look like us, we know what that feels like.
Yes.
Where we are always having to, frankly, justify being here, justify our place. When I hear Black people talk about imposter syndrome, and so I was talking to a sister yesterday, and she told me, thank you. She said, because you told me something long ago. When I told her that you belong in any room that you walk in, and I gave that as a commencement speech at Jackson State. And the sad thing with this case, with 5 bullets, what happened with these individuals, is that the perceptions that Bernie gets made, we've all had to deal with. So they may not have been holding a gun, but they could have been holding a pen.
Yep.
They could have been at a bank. They could have been in a convenience store. And so being followed around.
Mm-hmm.
So we know this story, even if we were not shot.
Roland, it's funny that you mentioned the affirmative action and all that. And I feel like Roland Martin Unfiltered is the one forum where I can say proudly, right? I have 3 Ivy League degrees. I have been a federal prosecutor, a law clerk to 2 different judges, a daily fixture on a national television network. I wrote a book with a major publisher. And every time I get criticism online, and they come at you online.
Of course.
People don't like whatever people do, but everybody's got an axe to grind. The first thing is always you DEI hire.
Always.
After all that, I'm an Eagle Scout, bro. Like literally, I've got, again, I don't say this as a flex, but these are all facts about my background.
Right.
And if anybody just took a minute to look at them. And as I mentioned, I come from immigrant parents. My dad worked in a department store for much of when I was a kid. Like I'm not, I got here, right? But the first thing of all, not I don't agree with you, not you're stupid, or not, okay, you're too liberal or conservative, whatever. It's you DEI hire. This DEI, it's a noun. This DEI, can you believe what this DEI said on air? And I just, wow, it's, you can't shake it, man. You just can't.
First of all, that's going to happen. And what I always say is, that's your problem. And my response, I've been asking this time, well, how do you respond? I'll go, they can kiss my ass. See, what I'm not going to do is not going. I remember we were having a chat. I can't remember if it was a friend chat, family chat, and someone said, we should put billboards up with our credentials. I'm like, that ain't gonna do nothing. I was dealing with I saw some white woman on Twitter. Ketanji Brown Jackson simply is not smart. I'm like, baby, she could run legal rings around your ass on a bad day. And so it is the reality of who we are. And as you were talking about that, I thought about, because I ripped him when he did, David Zurwick, who was a longtime TV critic with the Baltimore Sun. I remember he would trash me when I was on CNN saying I didn't know anything about politics. I remember I sent him an email. I was like, well, that's interesting, because I did know somebody who covered City Hall, who covered county government, state government, federal government, multiple levels, different cities, didn't understand politics. But I know what that judgment is about.
Yeah.
Because the reality is there's a view among some whites that again, this is the reason I chose this photo from January 6th. This is a white man with his arms outstretched. What the photo signified for me, all of this is ours. And that's really how this comes out. When I think about this story in 1984 and what was being said,
Yeah.
it was a sense of, this is ours. Y'all don't belong here. And we're going to defend ours the way we always have done, through violence.
Yeah.
And that's what it speaks to. Y'all, the book is called 5 Bullets, the story of Bernie Goetz, New York's explosive 80s, and the subway vigilante trial that divided the nation. Elliot, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
No, I appreciate you, Roland. Always great to talk. Thanks again.